What's up, guys? Howdy! Today is day 68, trying to make $1 million. I still fighting, and I'm going to make $1 million. That's a promise. 1 year to make $1 million, bro. Wow! There are only 297 days left, and let me show you guys. Let me show you, because right now, some important things happened. But right now I have 9 months, 22 days, and 3 hours. Let me show you. Real time counter, bro. Real time counter to make $1 million, bro. Real time. You can check the counter. The counter is in real time, so you can check the counter on my profile. And I only have 9 months, 22 hours, and 22 days and 6 hours to make $1 million, bro. Whoa! And for today, what I made, I finally, let me show you, because some important things happen. I finally received the Jesse Form Runners. Let's go! These shoes, guys. These shoes, the Jesse Form Runners, bro. Look at this shoe. The design of the Jesse Form Runner. Very interesting shoe. Look at the sole. It's interesting as well. In black and white. Look at this shoe. Why this is important? Because based on this design, I will create my own shoes, and I will sell a product, my brand, my running shoes brand, Big Way. So based on this design of the Jesse Form Running, I will design a new shoe. I will create a new shoe, and I will start selling shoes. So I'm one step forward. So right now I'm closer. I'm a little bit closer to make $1 million, bro. Oh, so minutes open. Light. Okay, no problem. Okay, 0 viewers, doesn't matter. We are going to learn. If you don't know what to do, study. If you already know what to do, go do it. And if you're already doing it, continue doing it and never stop. A lesson from Alex Hormozzi. So I don't know what to do. I already bought these shoes to understand how this shoe works, what people look for in a shoe. And I will be testing these shoes this week, analyzing. One thing that is true is that these shoes are very comfortable. Feels very nice, very comfortable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 2. Okay, let's go. Perfect. This shoe is very interesting. Have a very interesting design. So based on this design, I can create my own shoe. So is the fusion is like a mix between a Crocs and a sneaker, a running shoe. Is the mix between a running shoe and a Crocs. So very interesting. have these shoe these shoes have a very interesting design. These shoes are very interesting. Look, have holes and are very comfortable. Are very comfortable. So I will test this shoe this week. I will run with these shoes, test these shoes, and mail all these things I need to do before I launch my own product, because I want to launch a very similar shoe. I need to create a new design based on this design of the foam runner. So that's the plan. And I will start selling the shoes probably through Shopify. I will use Shopify to sell the shoes. For now, I keep reading this book, 100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozzi. But for today, I prepare another thing. So let me show you guys. First, I need this two things, the pen and the Sharpie. Take notes, guys, because we are going to learn from one of the best, the writer of this book. And let me show you. First, I will put the counter, because right now, if you are not subscribed, please subscribe and help me go to the moon. If you subscribe right now, you are helping me go to the moon. Right now, I have 187 subscribers. Let's go, bro. Let's go. We keep growing, bro. 187 subscribers. I lost one subscriber because yesterday I had 188 subscribers. I want to be completely transparent with you guys. Yesterday I had 188 subscribers, and right now I have 187 subscribers. So no! I lose one subscriber, bro. I lose one subscriber. Oh, wait, the gloves. Oh, okay. Perfect. I lose one subscriber. No way. What I made bad, bro. What I made bad. Okay. Something is different right now. I feel different. Because there are only 297 days to make $1 million. In 297 days, I will have $1 million, guys. $1 million in 297 days. So $1 million. $1 million. In 297 days, I will have $1 million. A big company called Big Way. I will be selling shoes. I will be one of the greatest YouTubers of all time, the greatest YouTuber streamer of all time. I will have 1 billion viewers. I know that 9 billion viewers, 10 billion viewers, because the aliens will watch my streams. Aliens watch my streams. Probably they are already watching my streams through BTooth or Rotooth or something like that. I don't know what application the aliens use. But what I do know is that I need to keep learning, because if I want to make $1 million in 365 days, I need to keep learning, guys. So let me share the screen with you guys. And we're going to watch this video by the writer of this book, Simon Squibb. Okay. Okay. How to build $1 million team is the title. Perfect.
Folks, today Layla's going to share with you her blueprint to building a $500 million company. Layla Hormozi has amassed a portfolio of 16 companies over the last 10 years, building a net worth of $100 million and becoming one of the most influential figures in business and leadership. So $100 million and becoming one of the most influential figures in business and leadership. So just quickly run me through the things you want to teach us today.
Yeah, so first we're gonna run through how to manage stress. Next, we're gonna go through leadership, which is really leading others. Then we're gonna go over finding talent. Then we're gonna talk about delegation. And then lastly, we're gonna do management.
One important thing is that if I want to build a shoe brand, $1 million shoe brand, I need to understand how to build $1 million team as well. So I'm very excited. I will test these shoes, but for now, I will learn from Layla Hormozi how to build $1 million team. The blueprint.
Right, let's talk about manage your stress, because I think a lot of people don't actually know how to do it. So how do we do it?
So step one is acknowledging what the thought or emotion is that is stressful, right? It might be a thought that's causing an emotion. It could be a situation that is causing emotion, whatever it is. It's acknowledging that thought or emotion.
To manage the stress.
The second step is that once you've acknowledged that thought or emotion, it's being able to diffuse from that thought or emotion. Rather than looking from a thought or emotion, looking at them. That's diffusion. The third step would be acceptance, right? Because you can diffuse, but it doesn't mean it makes it go away.
Right.
It just means that you have a different relationship with that thought or emotion. And so then you want to accept that you don't need something to go away in order to lead a productive life or reach your goals, whatever it may be. And I would say the next step is reorient yourself in the direction of your values or your goals. And so it's really reorientation. So it's acceptance or acknowledgement, diffusion, acceptance, and then reorientation. So when I think about step one, for example, which is acknowledging the thought or emotion, which is, I often ask people this when they come to me and they say, I'm really stressed, and there's this word vomit, right, that's coming out. And I say, well, what's the thought? I think of it like a fear hierarchy. You have all of these, I call it like fake fears, that keep popping up all over the place because they're almost defending you or protecting you from the main fear, which is like the top of the hierarchy. This is actually something they use in psychology. And I want to figure out what's the main fear. So first question is, what's the thought? The next question is, what are you scared of? And oftentimes, if I can ask those two questions, what we can get to is the root, and I ask myself these questions, by the way, first, of what that person or what I am actually thinking that is causing me so much distress. And so that really helps people acknowledge it, because if they can't think what's the thought, because maybe it just feels like mashed potatoes going on here, then it's like, okay, at least tell me what the fear is. Right? Because sometimes when we're so emotional in that state, it's difficult to even think about what the thought is. So what's the fear, right? And then usually that gets a person to identify exactly what it is, right? So maybe it's, I'll tell you, for a lot of people that work at my company, it's, I'm afraid if I don't do this well, I will lose my job, right? And so the top fear is that I will lose my job. And even beyond that is, I will then be a failure, like my mother or my father or something like that, right? Now, the next step is to diffuse. Diffusion, the best way that I can help somebody do that is, I think, with visualization. So I have two cues that I use with people. The first one is that I imagine all of my thoughts as fish in a pond. So it's like, I have a thought about this random thing. I've thought about this random thing. Oh, there's a light over there. Oh, there's this over here. And then I see like there's this rotten fish, right? And that rotten fish is the thought that is causing me the distress. And then I'm imagining myself looking at it at that point. And then that is enough usually to be like, oh, it exists outside of me. It's not a part of me. It is just something that exists in this world, right? And if anything, just like you see, it's a fish in the pond. It's a sentence in my mind. It is not the absolute truth. It is not a directive. It is just a thought or a sentence that exists in my mind right now. The second cue that I have for people is to think of it really like, books on a bookshelf. You're looking at a bookshelf and you're thinking like, what do I want to select for the day? And you're looking at all these books and like, ooh, that's a scary one. What's that one right there? It's a horror movie. Okay, I'm getting fired. I'm dying. My loved ones are all leaving me. And so I think of it like there's different books on a shelf, and the fear that you have or the thought that you have is just a book. Now you can pull it off the shelf, you can look at it, but that doesn't mean you need to open up and read the whole book. And so both of those visualization techniques help me and have helped a lot of other people that I work with.
So important point, you need to visualize your doubts, your fears, what is causing you stress. Important point.
Be able to detach from that thought, because if you walk someone through the exercise, it's just long enough for them to realize, one, they're kind of distracted from the actual thought because they're thinking about the thought, not from the thought. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so that's the second step, is to diffuse. Now, after you've diffused, the next natural step is that people want it to go away. They're like, okay, I'm diffused. Like, that means it goes away, right? And I'm like, no. It doesn't need to go away. The next step is acceptance, which is, if this thought were to never go away and I were to always have this thought, what would I do? What you would likely do is live your life with the thought. And so acceptance to me is, I have the thought, there's nothing I can do to make it go away. Taking action on the thought only reinforces the thought for me to have more of those thoughts. So I will take it with me in my purse. I'm sure you carry a purse.
Yeah.
And so I imagine it. Acceptance to me is, I'm going to put my purse over my shoulder. I'm going to put the thought in there. I'm going to take it with me throughout the day. I don't need to take it out and look at it. I don't need to check that it's in there every 5 seconds, but I know it's with me and it's in the back of my mind. It's floating around. I don't need to focus on it, but it can come with me and I can still take action towards my goals. Which brings me to the fourth one, which is reorientation. Oftentimes when you start up at the top where you're not able to manage stress because of these thoughts or emotions, you are stopping yourself, you're paralyzing yourself, you're not taking action. And oftentimes it's because we try to solve a problem from the same place it started. We are trying to think our way out of the thought or think our way out of the problem. Instead, I want to get into our lives by taking action towards our goals, which is the next question I ask myself is, what is an action or what is a behavior I can demonstrate right now that would align me with my goals, right? Something that I always
Okay, at this point.
demonstrate right now.
What is an action or what is a behavior? I can demonstrate right now. Okay.
That would align me with my goals. Right? Something that I always think of, and it's a visualization technique for me in terms of reorienting myself with my goals or my values, is I think of it like I have a board of directors and it consists of my goals and my values. And so for me, it's irrelevant what I think, it's irrelevant what other people think, but if I'm asking myself, will this action take me closer or further from my goals and values, I look at it like, okay, here's all my values and here's all my goals. And they're looking at me telling me if it will or if it will not. And if it will, fuck your mood, follow the plan. It doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter about this thought. I'm going to go do it anyways. And so those are the 4 steps that I use to manage stress.
Just out of interest, where did you learn this from? This is just, is it instinct on you or how?
Years of bad therapy.
Right. Is it?
I read so many old psychology books. One of my friends told me once, because I had a very good therapist and I had a very bad therapist, and I had to basically undo some of the things that person had spoken over me that really kind of messed with me, and I was really questioning a lot of things in my life at that point. This is about 5 years ago, and a friend of mine said, you're very smart, you're very bright. Why don't you just learn psychology yourself, like behavior science? And I was like, okay, like I love studying, I love information, I love learning. And so I started reading some of the oldest like behavioral psychology and just psychology books in general. And I felt so empowered by it because it made so much more sense to me. Everything that I had ever heard that did work for me. And it also made sense why the other things that, say, the bad therapist had taught me didn't work. And then what I learned very quickly was that most things don't take a long time to change. It's just that most people do things over a long time horizon. So learning how to change a behavior might only take you 2 weeks. It's just that you condense the amount of time.
So all of this information concentrates in one point. You need to visualize your thoughts and analyze if what is causing you stress helps you to achieve your goals or not. So action or behavior I can demonstrate right now that could align me with my goals. This is aligning me with my goals or not.
Times you expose yourself to a stressor, a fear, whatever it might be, most people take 8 weeks or 12 weeks or a year because they only try to overcome something once a week during a therapy session. And then I learned, I could do this multiple times a day, every day to myself. And so I was able to get over a lot of things that had stressed me out for a long time very quickly. And then I realized the power of knowing how to do these things for yourself. I'm going to say this pretty candidly, but there's good waitresses and bad waitresses. There's good therapists and bad therapists. Just because someone has the name therapist doesn't mean they're good or bad. And so I look at it like anything else in life, which is I'm not going to hire a CPA without knowing a single thing about taxes.
Right.
I'm not going to hire a business coach without knowing a single thing about business. You have to know some level to judge if somebody is competent or not. And so that was my journey to figure that out. And in doing that, I realized how much of this didn't only help me, but helped the people on my team, helped the people I worked with. And I was like, holy crap, this is what they've all struggled with. And if I master this myself, then I can help other people master it too.
Totally. What I also love about this is a lot of people that I meet that have a dream, they don't make it happen because they've let fear take over them and they've not realized that that thing in their handbag can actually power them up as well.
Yes.
Depending on the fear, if you're scared of not making it, well, use that fear to make sure you do make it, because fear's a superpower. It was given to us, as a superpower. We're meant to feel fear. It gives us.
Okay, interesting concept. Okay, at this point, what's my fear? Probably don't make $1 million. That I wouldn't make $1 million in 1 year. I failure. I'm afraid of failure. So that's my fear, but I'm trying. I go live every day. Not every day, but I go live as constant as possible. I post every single day or as constant as possible because I already failed. There were days in which I didn't post because there were problems with edition or something like that, or I was at the hospital, but I also go live at the hospital and post at the hospital, but some external factors affect all of this consistency. But what I'm afraid of, one of the important things that I learned is that most of my fears aren't real. Most of my fears aren't real. That's one thing I learned. How can you do that? You just need to analyze. And in psychology with my therapist, I do an experiment. I draw a hand, and in my hand I put my fears and analyze if my fears were real or not. And the conclusion was that my fears aren't real. You can just draw a hand, put your fears, and start thinking about, okay, this fear is real or not, and why this fear is real. And most of the time you are afraid of things that aren't real.
We can run faster, we think differently.
Yeah.
It can be fuel for you, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't keep it in your bag. Don't try to get rid of it. It's like use it right? Like you say, like reorientate it maybe, even think about that as fear as a power.
I agree, and it's actually something I say to my team, which is I say it's the curse of care.
Yeah.
You know, like they're like, I'm so scared. I'm like, you're scared because you care.
Yeah.
And caring is a good thing, and caring is something that I think is made to be. It's like cool not to care nowadays. And I said in one of our company meetups recently, I said like, let's make caring cool again.
Right.
I give so many shits. I care so much, and I'm proud of that because it makes me try really hard on these things. And so I agree with you on that one. I think it's a superpower.
Yeah, I've also been to therapy. Best thing I ever did. I actually got a good therapist, so I was lucky.
good.
But I really like it. I think because it's like the psychology of how your brain works. People don't know how it works, so sometimes they think the fear is there and it stops them
Yeah.
instead of pushes them.
Well, it's like
So-
if you go to drive a stick shift, you don't know how to drive it, then you think, oh, this thing doesn't work.
Right.
That there's something wrong with it. People always, do you hear those people who are constantly saying, there's something wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. You don't know how to work it.
Yeah,
You don't know
exactly.
how it's supposed to work, so you don't realize that this is normal.
Yeah, totally. Well said. Okay, leadership. Something I'm always trying to be a good leader myself, so I'm really excited to hear leadership. How does it work?
Demonstration. Everybody wants to hear the secret to leadership, and I think that you have to go to the way to show the way, right? And so you have to demonstrate what it looks like to people. And so I have really 3 steps that I teach, which I think actually this will link into one of them, which is like, in order to properly delegate, you have to properly lead. Because in order to delegate, you have to demonstrate.
Okay, that's
in order
important.
that I teach, which I think actually this will
In order to properly delegate, you have to properly lead. Probably I need another color. I will.
link into one of them, which is like in order steps that I teach, which I think actually this will link into one of them, which is like, in order to properly delegate, you have to properly lead.
Okay. Delegate and lead.
Because in order to delegate, you have to demonstrate. In order to lead, in order to properly delegate, you have to properly lead.
Okay, in order to properly delegate, you have to properly lead. So, another color. Purple. Okay. I will take notes about that.
Because in order to delegate, you have to demonstrate. In order to lead, you have to demonstrate. And so what I look at it is true leadership is being able to create an environment that makes it easy for people to hit their individual and group environment that makes it easy for
this
people
is
to hit
super
their
powerful because we understand what leadership really means, guys. We understand what leadership really means.
is being able to create an environment that
Okay. Leadership is being able to create an environment being able to create an environment
that makes it easy for people to hit their individual
to hit their individual
and group goals. So
group goals. Perfect. So, leadership is defined as is being able to create an environment that makes it easy for people to hit their individual and group goals. Super powerful, bro.
So in a company, that would mean that you create an environment that makes people want to achieve their own personal goals and the business goals by consequence. So you arrange people in a way that allows them to achieve their personal goals. And because they all achieve their personal goals, the business goals also are achieved. And so it's like, if you can arrange people in that way, then I think that it's a win-win for everybody. John Mackey from Whole Foods talks about this, and this resonated with me when I read his book. It was like 4.5 years ago, where he talked about like he will not make a decision unless it's a win-win-win for everybody. A win for the customers, for the environment, for the community, for the employees, for him, for the investors. And so every time I make a decision, I think about how can this be a win for every single person? And how can I make sure my team wins so that the business can win, rather than the other way around?
I think the beautiful thing about that is that, and I'm personally building a company around purpose. You can hire people around purpose because then if they have the same purpose as you, that also demonstrates the same goals, right? Because if someone isn't interested in fixing the education system and they're working with me, it's harder to manage them. It's harder to motivate them. But if we're aligned and I can demo that I care about it and then they also care about it, it makes life so... I don't manage people, I manage purpose.
Yeah.
I've stopped managing people. You can't motivate people if they don't have... If your goal isn't aligned...
If you have a purpose, more people will be able to help you, and also you create something bigger than yourself. That's a concept that I learned from this amazing book. What's Your Dream, guys? This is an amazing book that I highly recommend you. Buy this book because this book, What's Your Dream, is super powerful. You learn about business, you learn about how to manage a company, you learn about how to hire, you learn how to fire people, and you also learn about your dream and purpose. This is my favorite book. I will read this book again, guys, because it's super powerful. Purpose. With purpose, you will something bigger. That's the reason why I will give Big Way something more than selling running shoes or recovery shoes in my case. I will give Big Way a purpose. The purpose to sponsor the best runners in the world. The purpose to help people go beyond their human limits. The purpose of create a world of impossibles, that is my dream. The purpose that leads to help other runners to overpass their human limits.
with their goal, to your point.
It's the same as, and I think going with this is that if you share a mission and you share values, everything else is easy.
Yes.
It's just like when people...
If you share a mission and you share values,
asked like, how do you work with, because I think at the very top, why is it that myself and Alex are able to be business partners? Because we have we share a vision, a mutual vision, we then have aligned mission, and then we have shared values. And so it's like, when you look at a group of people, what makes it easy to lead people, I think, is the shared mission, shared values, and then even, I would say, the third piece is shared interests. Because if you have one thing in common, I think that's amazing.
also
But if you have
that
multiple
way
things
you
in
can
common, I
find
think
your
that makes for
co-founder,
camaraderie.
guys. That
How
way
do you
can find
check
your
on the
co-founder.
value side? How do you make
But
sure?
I create a video about finding your co-founder, and first you need to know if your business needs a co-founder, because not all the time you need a co-founder, and most people think, oh, I need a co-founder. No. When the business asks for a co-founder is when you need a co-founder, not before. You don't need to start with a co-founder. You can start yourself. And then, when you see that you need a co-founder, you will look for a co-founder. When the business asks for a co-founder, when needs some things, when you need to share responsibilities, when you need someone to make the work you are not good at, that's when you need to find a co-founder, not before.
People listening, like, okay, I love the idea of shared values.
Yeah.
How do you determine that is true?
Yeah, shared values.
One important lesson I want to discuss with you guys is that also,
Are just shared behaviors.
okay, I forget it. Okay, no. Let me.
Yeah.
How do you determine that is
Shared-
true?
Yeah, shared values are just shared behaviors.
Values. You don't need to find people. It's better to find people with good values than with good abilities. You can have someone that is great doing something, that have a good ability, but if he doesn't have good values, it's a mess, bro. You need to first find someone with values, because you can teach an ability to your employees, but first it's easier to teach an ability than to change someone's values. I will repeat that. It's easier to teach an ability than to change someone's values.
behaviors.
Right.
So
lesson
culture
for
is
you
what
guys,
you
and
do,
that you
not what
can
you say.
apply to your
And I think that this is where it gets very misconstrued. So I always use the term operationalizing values. And I think that's the job of a leader. Misconstrued. So I always use the term operationalizing values. And I think that's the job of a leader, is to teach people how to operationalize values. When I say operationalize values, it means people are like, be honest. Well, what the fuck does that mean? So I'm supposed to go into an interview and be like, hey, are you honest?
Yeah.
He said yes. Oh my God, he's honest. Amazing.
Done.
He should be on the team. And so I think that, again, it all goes back to demonstrate, which is, did they demonstrate honesty? So something that I like to ask people on interviews, for example, is I like them to tell me, I always kind of like level with them. I'm like, listen, let me tell you something about myself that's not so good, right? And then I'm like, I'm kind of a control freak. Here's something that I did. And I actually fucked up really bad yesterday on this thing. And I try to share something vulnerable with them that I've messed up on. And then I say, great, so here's the thing. We all have shit. You've just told me all the stuff that's amazing about you. I want to know the shit, though. Because I want to know if it's shit that I have a strength to match with, so I can help you. And in that moment, because we have a value of sincere candor, if somebody opens up and tells me the truth, I don't really care how bad it is, because everyone has shit. It's just like, to what degree do you have shit? It's the people who tell me they don't. That tells me they just demonstrated they don't have sincere candor, because everybody has stuff that
Of
they're
course,
bad
I do.
at.
Totally.
So that is operationalizing a value. It's not asking a question, do you have this value? It's getting someone to show you if they behave in a way that exemplifies that value. You know, the next piece would be, if you look at competitive greatness, that's another value of ours. How do I operationalize that value? Well, I would say putting someone in this situation, and this is a question I've asked people in interviews, which is, if you worked at a restaurant and we served breakfast until 11 o'clock, and a customer came in at 11:15 and said, I wanted to have breakfast, what do you do?
Serve it to them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so competitive greatness is like, I will fucking figure out a way. I will go make it myself in the kitchen. I don't care.
Talk
if
the
there's
chefs
stuff
into it, even
I'm
if they're
gonna-
annoyed.
I'm going to
Yeah,
do
blah, blah.
anything, right? They're going to find a way. They make shit happen. And when somebody doesn't have that, they're like, well, the rules say that it ends at 11, so I would respect the rules of the company. I'm like, oh, no, I need people who break rules, right?
Make the rules for them to break the rules.
Right, exactly. And so when I talk about operationalizing values, I'll tell you another one that I would say, like, I talk to my team about a lot within this building, which is having a physical headquarters. How do you operationalize values on a daily basis? You know, for example, we have our coffee maker, and every once in a while I would come and it would be out of water. And I was like, because our other value is unimpeachable character, which is like doing the right thing and being the kind of person that somebody would want to associate with. I wouldn't want somebody who doesn't refill the coffee maker, doesn't refill the fridge, doesn't clean up after themselves to be on this team. And so I was like, I took a picture of it and I was like, the next time that it doesn't have water, it's going to be unavailable for people to use, right? I walked in the next day and found a teammate, nobody was around, refilling the water, right? She was demonstrating unimpeachable character. And so I think that when you look at leadership, it's being able to demonstrate those values, being able to live them out, and being able to creatively find ways to test if others hold those values. Really just by watching and seeing if they demonstrate them rather than taking people's word for it. And I think a lot of people, when they think of leadership and culture, it's just a lot of like, well, if people say the right things, but it's not about what we say, it's about what we do.
Totally. When people aren't looking.
Exactly. Great leaders are multipliers. And so when I think
Great
of
leaders
somebody
are multipliers. Another important lesson.
who's a leader, you have to have influence. And people who have influence the behavior of others. And when you influence the behavior of others to be like yours, you create more of you. And so there's two things I think that go with that, which is with great power, it's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I never will forget that line
Yeah.
because it just,
I
with
don't think
great
they
power.
trademarked it. We can use it. I think
Really?
it's not
Yeah.
trademarkable.
Okay, with
Yeah.
great power comes great responsibility. They will do
Uncle Ben. Bro, Spider-Man.
Remarkable.
Okay, with
Yeah.
great power comes great responsibility. They will do
Okay, important quote. Important quote. From Spider-Man. From Uncle Ben.
what you do to such a degree that it's scary sometimes. So if I ever want to know where my deficits as a leader, I look at everyone who reports to me. What are their deficits? Okay, those are my cracks I have to work on. This happened to me recently. The second piece to it is that when you're hiring for leaders, when you're hiring for people on your team, ask yourself, would I want 10 more of this person on my team? And if I did have 10 more of them, what bad would occur? Like, where are their deficits? And if you multiply a person, you can see those, which is why being a leader in a company is one of the most important and hardest roles. Because if people ask what is leadership, it's very difficult to say what a leader is because it's 100 micro skills bundled into one term. So it's one term that if you actually looked at leadership, it's probably 12 different descriptors, and each of those 12 have 30 skills attached to it. So when people say write a book on leadership, I'm like, what the fuck? I would need to write 15 books on 15 different things because leadership is the bundling of all of those things into one term. And so when you look at the multiplier effect, the reason that you hold leaders to such a high standard is because if they have any sort of crack, it multiplies with all the people that they influence, which is why you hold them to a higher standard.
Yeah, I really love it. I recently became a father, so I've got a son, and my business skills came into effect when I realised my son doesn't do what I tell him. Kids don't do what you say, they do what you do. You know, I think that's the same with leadership.
Yeah.
You know, you can say all the time, come in early, care, do that, and you're not there, and you're out playing golf.
No.
But how can you expect people to not just do what you do?
I know.
You know, so that you know, my 7-year-old has me wrapped around his little finger. But conceptually, like I try to act like I want him to be. I don't just tell him, I show him.
It's funny. It's in my last company, we were completely remote, and I got a walking treadmill desk. And I remember I got one, and people were like, oh wow, you're walking a lot more, whatever. I'm like, yep, I want to stay healthy, even though we're working a lot and all this stuff. And it was within 2 months, I took a screenshot. Half the people on the call had gotten treadmill desks.
Totally.
And then all of a sudden, it's like lost 10 pounds, lost 15 pounds. And I was like,
yeah, that's a
it's
big
everything.
effect. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I think being a leader is the word leadership is probably a bit misleading, isn't it? It's like it's kind of a guide.
Yeah.
I think it probably needs a new word. You could write a book about guide as opposed to leadership because it's not. That's a misinterpretation of what it actually is, right?
yeah, I do agree with you. And I think it is at the core guide that uses influence,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's just
What means leadership to you guys? What is the meaning of leadership? Drop in the comments, guys. What is the meaning for you? What's the meaning of leadership for you guys? Drop in the comments.
just a matter of, are you using the influence to get people to achieve their goals or to achieve your goals?
And the best leaders lift people up so that they don't have to do all the work. You know, like if you think leadership is you at the front doing it all, good luck. You know, you won't build a team and you'll burn out pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
The best leaders are the ones that you do it, you're better than me, or they lift other people up. And
You
not,
let people borrow your confidence in
great way of putting
them
it.
before they have it for themselves.
Borrow your confidence. I like that.
That's how I look at it. Is like, if I think of the best leaders that I've ever had that have influenced my life, they believed in me so much that I was able to do the thing, and then I did the thing, and then I believed in myself.
Yeah.
But I didn't believe in myself before I did it. They believed in me first. And so I try to give that to people, which is, I, if anything, have too much confidence in people's abilities sometimes. And so I actually will overestimate what they can do. And then when they can't, I'm like, oops.
Yeah.
You know. But I tell everyone, I'm like, listen, I would rather you fail, you try and fail.
Yeah.
And I always make sure that I reinforce the fact that they tried.
Right.
I'm so proud of you for trying. They're like, I ate shit. I'm like, that's okay, you tried. That's why I'm so happy about it.
Yeah. I always think if people have thought about it, made the effort, then you can't ever fault them. It's the people that don't try that are frustrating or assume they're going to fail. I think it's also a beautiful trait as of a leader to believe that your colleague can do anything, and you find out what their real ability is by giving them that free rein, right?
Yeah, I would rather try. I say test and learn.
Totally.
Like, test and learn. It's a test. It's never, we're not going to commit to anything. We're not going to change your job. We're going to change the company. We're going to test something. And that also relieves so much pressure, because if I'm like, we're changing everything, it's like people are like, what the fuck? But I'm like, we're going to test something.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I was just talking to your editor who's doing your YouTube channel, which is amazing, by the way. And she was saying the thing she loves the most about working on that, apart from working with you, is that she gets to experiment. And I think that's a really nice thing to be at that stage where you can experiment. Sometimes in businesses we get so stuck in our ways. Once something's working, it's like copy and paste.
Yeah.
It's the innovation that's actually the fun bit, especially if you're allowed to innovate.
You know what's funny is we always say this. Anytime we repeat something we've already done, we say, what's one thing we can change each time?
Right.
Because if we don't change one thing, how will we ever learn if anything ever works better?
Yeah.
One thing we can change each time.
Right.
Because
Wow. Here's another important lesson. Other important lesson, bro. Okay.
if we don't change one thing, how will we ever learn if anything ever works better?
Yeah, so true.
And so
Right.
What was the last
anytime we repeat something we've already done, we say, what's one thing we can change each time?
Right.
What's one thing we can change each time?
Because if we don't change one thing, how will we ever learn if anything ever works better?
Yeah, so true.
And so we always say, well, we shouldn't do it exactly how we just did it. We know that works, but let's try. And so because of that, do we have more L's? Yes. But we also get more outsized wins because we'll learn that something works so much better, every 4 times.
Yeah, totally. I was with Zach King, who's got the most popular TikTok video ever a few days ago. and he's literally killing it on social media, like an incredible creator.
Wow.
And we created a video where he was like, well, I've learned something there because you've done a different ending. We always do a different ending to the story that you've done. So, even the most talented people can, the reason they're so talented is because they accept that they don't know anything. Even though he's got the most popular TikTok ever with 2.2 billion,
wow.
he's still like, I've learned something from a much smaller TikToker like us, that's a real leader. You realize that your formula is not the best formula, even when you've got the most popular thing out there.
What's funny is I was just talking to my team about this because a lot of them think there's this common misconception, especially with new leaders, that experienced leaders don't ask for help. And I was like, you've got this completely backwards. If I'm in a room with anybody that I could learn anything from, I act dumber than I am.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, why would you? Because how else will I learn? If I can tell somebody, this is the line I always use. I say, okay, so say I'm talking to you and you're an attorney for, overseas trust funds or something. And I'm like, listen, I'm going to level with you here. I'm like golden retriever level when it comes to these trust funds. So if you could just break it down like I'm 5 years old, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
And then you learn so much because somebody simplifies it down.
I actually think one of the biggest skills to success is learning to ask for help. It's one of the hardest things to ask for help, actually, as humans. It's not natural for us. If you can learn to do it, you can learn to accept that in the room you're embarrassed for a minute, but forever you're going to get the answer you need. Like, be embarrassed in the room for a minute. 100%. I don't know how that works. Can you explain it again? It's like one of my favorite things in a meeting when someone says it, because I think, they're going to be brilliant over time because they're willing to be embarrassed for a minute.
It's funny you say that because the number one thing when I promoted a guy, his name was Kale, to be CEO of my last company, I said, there's one thing that you've got to learn. And he was like, what? I was like, you have to be okay with falling on your face.
Yeah.
He was like, what do you mean? I was like, on every meeting, I was like, you don't challenge, you don't ask, you don't do this because you're afraid of falling and looking like an idiot. And I was like, how often do I look like an idiot? And he was like, okay.
And actually, people like it too. It's quite an endearing thing when someone sees that you don't know it all.
Yeah.
And actually, you have a respect for someone when they say they don't know something.
Oh, 100%.
When people pretend they know everything, I'm always like, it's impossible.
I'm like, I don't know jack shit. People are like, oh, you're great at content. I'm like, I don't feel like I don't know anything. I'm just winging it out here,
You are good at content, just for the record.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying today's podcast. I've just written a book, guys. It's taken me 35 years to get all this knowledge, and I put it all in here. It will help you remove any subconscious bias you have for stopping you from starting your dream. The key in this book that I want you to learn is if you want your dream to happen, you've got to make other people's dreams happen first. The link is down in the description. It would mean a lot to me if you bought it. All the proceeds from this book I'm giving away to fund dreams. So please buy it if you can. Thanks. Now let's get back to the podcast.
Finding talent out of interest. Well, interesting. The insecure thing is really interesting, by the way, because I think that comes back to just accepting you don't know everything. I'm actually also insecure. I don't think I'm the best YouTuber. I've got a very successful YouTube video. Doesn't mean I'm a good YouTuber, but I think that can spur you on to be good.
Yeah.
If you think you're good enough, I see people that think they're brilliant and they don't grow. They don't last long, I think that humbleness is actually really important to keep it.
Because you're always like, did I provide value? Did I do a good job?
Yeah, how can I do
You're not
better?
resting on your laurels.
Totally. Yeah, I think the people that think that they're the best at something, I'm always like, oh, be careful. You're not going to survive.
Nothing fails like success.
Totally, I love that. Nothing fails like success. I don't know about that one. You're not going to survive.
Nothing fails like success.
Totally, I love that. Nothing fails like success. I don't know about that one. You're not going to survive.
Nothing fails like success.
Totally, I love that. Nothing fails like success. I'm going to write that one down too.
I don't like to invest in a company that the founder hasn't had their first failure.
Totally.
Because then they act like this.
Totally. I've invested in 78 startups, and the ones that have done really well are people that have failed quite a few times before I invested in them.
They don't think they're invincible.
Yeah. Do you know what's really interesting? I invested in someone who had a really big success in their second company. They didn't realize, but they didn't learn much from their success. Because you learn so much more from your failure.
It's very true.
When you actually break it down, and I even think for myself, my success is luck. Yeah. PwC bought my business. Oh, that was actually really lucky, But I look at the ones where it failed. I'm like, wrong partner, put too much money in too quick, didn't do enough on the sales. Can see where it went wrong so much easier.
Yeah, it's funny because my first company, I knew it was luck because it just blew up. And I was like, it's not me because I'm not talented. And then I feel really lucky because then COVID hit. And all of a sudden we couldn't do business in any one of our 3 businesses. And then I learned what it's like to eat shit for a year and a half And then I feel like it was like nice because it didn't completely fail, but it definitely, I mean, it completely changed the business forever. We're still able to have like a successful exit, but like what people don't know was the business was getting valued at 250 million before COVID. And then we were like, oh, I think we could they were like, well, if you wait a year, you might be able to get 350, 400 million for it. And then we waited a year and then we got 50 million.
Right.
So
One
you
in the
know that
hand
doesn't
is
feel good.
better
Yeah.
than the bush. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
100%.
yeah, it's so funny, isn't it? Finding talent. This is something I've personally, honestly struggled with over the years until recently when I put purpose at the front of the business. But how do you find talent?
You have to know your employee value proposition.
Right.
Just like you have an offer for the marketplace, you have to have an offer for the talent marketplace. And so I'll tell you what mine is, for example, growth. That is the number one, like, for example, when you're a product on the market, there's like good, fast, cheap.
Right.
Pick one to lead with. The same goes for when you have like an employee value proposition, which is like there's tons of money, there's tons of growth, there's tons of status. Which one do you lead with? For me, lead with tons of growth.
Right.
I would say that status is a close follow-up because of our brand. Pay is like we pay on the top end, but it's not like astronomical compared to what you could get from a different private equity fund. And so I would say that that's my stack in terms of knowing what my employee value proposition is, so that I know when people come here, the people I'm speaking to, because if you don't know who you're trying to attract and why they want to work for your company, then you cannot market to them. So when I'm writing a job description, I'm orienting it towards a director of customer service who's looking to grow. They want more skills. I'm looking, when I build my organizational design, the way that this company is designed, for example, I have it basically where people can be deployed into any project at any point in time. It could be in our portfolio division, our $100 million series division, which is also the content, or it could be in our workshops division. And so people are always learning because they're getting deployed on different projects. So everything is to support this number one value proposition, which is growth. It's just like when you have a product strategy, it has to revolve around the main value of the product. Same with your talent strategy. It has to revolve around the main value for the talent. And so I orient everything towards growth. When that comes to an employee value proposition, the value that they get from the job is how much they're going to learn. So it's the trainings that we conduct here. It's the experience they're going to get here. It's the upwards momentum that we're going to provide them with. So we, like, even at a very small stage, it's like working on career pathing and career development and talking about where someone's going to be going and providing a clear way to get about that. So a lot of people have like performance management plans, but we have performance development plans, which is we're not just looking to manage people's performance, we're looking to develop people's performance. How do they get better?
Love that.
I'll give you an example. As we have people that come in to work on our portfolio companies, and they're experts in, let's just say, an expert in sales. Well, now I'm going to say, I'm going to take you and you're going to run these 3 workshops. Well, in order to run workshops, you have to learn how to present. You have to learn, and so then we're going to put you into the presenter training curriculum, which is led by one person who's going to be constantly grading you, giving you feedback, giving you assignments. And so I have people that were solely working on my portfolio that now sound like, honestly, like world class at speaking. And it's been like the coolest, most insane thing to watch. But what's even better is that it just drives this. And so then when I'm speaking to people who want to join my team, I get to use those instances to explain to them, here's what you're going to get to learn. Here's all the different types of things you can learn in each division. And here's how I'm going to facilitate that learning. It's much harder to do this as a company. But the reason that I chose growth to be our number one is because people watch our content and they say, I want to become like that. I would love to be able to lead a company one day. I'd love to be able to have a company like Acquisition.com. It's usually they're very aspirational, right? And so I don't think it makes sense for us to just throw a bunch of money at people. That's not why they want to come here. That's not why companies even want us to invest in them. Every single person, whether it be an employee or a company, wants growth.
And the great thing about growth, if people pick this up, is that one of my personal biggest achievements, when I sold my company Fluid to PricewaterhouseCoopers, said, what's your biggest achievement? There was one particular person, Jessica was her name, and I put a development plan in front of her, and she worked so hard for 2 years. She got so good, she ended up being head of Wall Street Journal content in China. She went from working for me to working in this incredible job, doing an incredible thing. And that's one of my biggest achievements. She's not working for me anymore. But that feeling that you really, you invested in someone and they took the challenge and went and became brilliant.
So cool.
I think that's an underrated thing in leadership that a lot of people don't realize. It's like, if you can develop talent, they also become friends for life, kind of, as well. I know, friendship and businesses are where people say, you can't say they're friends, but I consider her a friend now.
Yeah.
And I think because she put a lot into the company, she helped the company, but at the same time, she got something out. I think that's really important to make that. This is sales as well, by the way. A lot of people, when we're talking like internally how to build a company, this is sales, what you're doing here too, right? If someone, and I've spoken to a lot of your team, they're here for growth.
Yeah.
They want to learn. They want to be the best. So that's an incredible sales pitch. And salary is important. You've got to be competitive. But people overrate salary and they undervalue growth.
Yeah.
And most people leave because they don't see anywhere to grow anymore.
100%.
That's what I see most people leave companies.
I agree. I think we follow up the close second with status, because what I've explained to them is that if we invest in Acquisition.com's brand, then they get, by proxy, they get to be associated with it, which gives them status as well.
I think status is a really interesting one too. And I see it with my team. My team have helped me build up my personal brand. I wouldn't have done it without them.
Oh, yeah.
And they leverage it by saying they built Simon Squibb brand. And I love to see it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think this getting this status that they deserve because of their hard work, I think is, again, a value that not a lot of companies can give people as well. If you can build this in, if you can actually give status to it, that's why people want to be lawyers and doctors when they're young.
Yeah.
You know, like whether they're dream jobs or not, it's status. I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor. There are a lot of businesses, you know, traditional businesses are competing with that.
Yeah.
You know, you want people that could work for you that could go just be a lawyer in a law firm, or you want to come and work for you, you better give them status.
100%. And I think a lot of places lead with one of these two, with this as like a third. But I think that especially for, you know, bootstrapped self-starters, etc., like this is actually the one that you have the most control over and usually can be best at, because a lot of people are so growth oriented, and that's why they get into it. And it's being able to, you know, disseminate that down. So, you know, employee value proposition, managing employee development rather than, you know, I would say performance development, not performance management. And then I would say the last thing is creating community. So if you think about like what creates raving fans, it's often when somebody can create a community. Everything I've learned about creating community has actually come from creating teams. So anything that I understood worked on my team, I said, what if we did this for our customers? You know, and then it's always the unscalable things, right? Where people say like, what creates a community? It's like, well, community is really built off of brand, and brand internally is your reputation. And so what is my reputation as the CEO is probably like the stemming point at which we create that community, because it's like my brand is, people know, I'm pretty sure my team would say like Layla cares a lot. She probably can stress because she cares so much sometimes, but like she's personable, she's funny, she's not going to yell at you. Like there's probably like a brand like that. And then that is what builds the community. And so I'd say, you know, for me, it's how do I create an environment where everyone has shared values, and so they can start to add value to each other rather than just from management down into people. And so that's where I look at how do you create the community, because I think the community is the retention, and it's also an attraction piece, which is, for example, when somebody comes in here to do an interview and they get to talk to different people on the team and they say, wow, you don't just have like one person, like this is not BS, like you guys actually live by your values, and like every person here is a killer. And it's not just, oh, you get to work for Layla now, but oh, you get to work with all of these very talented people. And so I think it's also continuing to hold those standards that you create that community that other people want to be a part of.
I think community is one of the biggest business hacks that big companies don't do very well, that gives people a competitive edge on all levels, both from your customer point of view. Like I think of all the big brands, what communities do they have? Like Google even, there's no, other than their campus and the staff, which you can argue is just a place to work. Actually, Google, there's no community. There's some of these big brands externally have no community. This is like the biggest way of disrupting the big guys in the future, I think.
It is. And I do think it's probably one of the hardest ones to create too. Because I think community, in my opinion, is where also a lot of the shared interests come in, which is like, why do I have a gym in my headquarters?
Right.
Because
that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to create a community. That's why I'm not only creating content for Big Way, my brand, but also for my personal brand, because I'm trying to create a big community. I'm trying to grow a community from scratch.
It's a sense of community. People get to commune in the gym with each other. People get to commune in the snack areas with each other. It's creating opportunities for people to demonstrate their shared interests in the work environment, but not in the actual work. And so it's like, what are the other activities that they have in common that approximate work, but are not work? And then how can you facilitate them doing those things together? And And so I see a lot of people working out together. I see a lot of people going and filming in their free time together. I see a lot of people going and they actually study together, study their materials together. So it's all of the other things that occur outside of that one thing. Because if you think about a community, it's usually like CrossFit. I will say that they created a very strong community-like feel. Why is it that CrossFit's such a shared community? It's like they literally eat the same food. They do the same workouts. A lot of them have the same jobs. I mean, it's like they have so many similarities. And so I look at it the same way with community, which is like, if you don't have the similarities, you can create them to a degree with the environment. You know, I think there's a lot of people who didn't work out until they started working here. Oh, there's a gym down there, I'll start working out. And hey, I'm gonna start working out with 3 or 4 people.
That goes back to like shared values as well, right? Like your core value as a company has to be
100%.
inside people themselves, which means, of course, that creates. You can't force a community. I think a lot of people try and right, come on, everybody, come on my platform. We've got a community, and people are like, well, I'm not naturally there. You know, I'm not naturally doing it. You got to go with. It's got to be natural. Back to the hiring process.
Probably for the next video, I will analyze how to create a community, because if I want to sell $1 million, I need to create a community. So probably that's one thing I will analyze for the next stream. How to create a community.
You got to make sure they have the same values. Do they want to be healthy? Do they want to be the best versions of themselves? Are they willing to push themselves to be the best versions of themselves? Then they'll go to the gym.
Yes. It's,
You know, if they don't have those values, they won't.
it's the two things, which is like if you ensure that everyone is aligned with the mission and the values, and if you create an environment, that's step 1. Step 2 is create an environment that makes it easy for them to interact, like within the sphere of those values or interests, then it's like, there's not much else you gotta do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. People
People
make it
value
too
being
complicated.
healthy and there's a gym, they're gonna use it.
Yeah, that's very true. Right, we're going to do delegation, which I am brilliant at. I'm absolutely brilliant at delegation. Can you hear my sarcasm in my voice?
Yeah, I'm like,
I always want to do it myself, and then when I delegate it, I realise there are people better than me. I delegated running my last company to someone else. Best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
They did a better job than me. They made it 4x bigger than I did.
wow.
Yeah, so
That's
I'm glad I
cool.
delegated it, but it was so hard. It was like giving my baby over to someone. You know?
I know that feeling.
So how do we delegate?
Yeah, so it's really 3 steps, which is, it starts with one of the similar ones from leadership, but it's, we demonstrate, right? And so I think a lot of people, they skip to the second step, which is document. So the first thing you want to do is you want to show somebody what to do. The step after that is you want them to document what they just watched you do. This is where most people fuck up. They say, I'm going to demonstrate, and then I'm going to make an SOP of how to do it to show the person. There's so many psychology studies around this, which is the person who documents the process learns the most. So why would you keep that to yourself by being the one to document it? And so the way that I build a customer success department or service department, for example, is that I have somebody come in and I say, great, so the first thing I want you to do is I want you to document all of the customer inquiries that we're getting. And they're like, we don't already. I'm like, just do it. You know, I'm like, yes, we have it. But, and then I say, okay, great. Now I want you to document all the responses that people are giving to each of those customers. And what you see is that by doing that, people literally teach themselves.
That's also what I'm doing right now. I'm documenting the process of making $1 million. Going live every day, posting every single day, learning from my mistakes. I've been failing like during 68 days now. 68 days failing, bro. And I document every single day with lives or with streams. Okay, not every single day because I failed, but I'm completely transparent with you guys. I failed and I didn't post every single day. I didn't go live every single day. I failed, but that's also proof. I document that process because I'm documenting that process right now. And the person that documents the process learns the most.
Is already happening and what the process is. And though I already have some of these things done, they learn it so much faster doing it themselves. And so first you demonstrate it, you show the person, they get to watch you do it. Then you ask them to document what you just did. And then the third step is that you ask them to duplicate what you just showed them, right? And so duplicate what you demonstrated in the first place. And when they duplicate it, you want to make sure they duplicate it by following the document they made.
Right.
So think about it like this, right? I'm going to make a sale. So I'd say, cool, I want you to watch me make a sale. Okay, great. While you watch me make the sale, now I want you to go document the script of what I just said. Okay, great. Now I'm going to watch you make a sale using the script that you just wrote off of me making the sale.
You'll find the flaw quite quick.
You will find the flaw very quickly. And so you continue to repeat this process until somebody is able to match, or I would say match is the standard, match whatever metric or qualitative measurement determines success, right? And so for sales, for example, I said, cool, I'm closing 80%. This is when I had my first company. It's 9 years ago, right? If you can close 80%, like from a call to close, then you can take over, right? And then of course what happens is, they have more time and resources, so they close 80%, then eventually even more because they're not doing 17 other things like me. And so this is the process that I've seen has worked the best. I think what most people do to delegate something is they skip right to, I'm going to document something, and somebody should know how to do this based off of a spreadsheet. I mean, it's like, how many processes can we actually like properly do by just reading instructions? Now I'll say this as a caveat to all of this. More intelligent people require less specific direction. The more intelligent people require less specific direction. The more intelligent somebody is, the more they can take vague direction and get it right. Think about your smartest people. You're like, dude, sales is on fire. I need you to go handle this. He's like, I fucking got it. And you're like, yeah, he's going to figure it out because he's a smart dude. If somebody is less intelligent, they require more specific instructions or less intelligent on that specific topic. So if you hire a very experienced person and bring them in, you might actually be able to just give them very vague direction, not have to do many of these things at all. But if you bring somebody in who is less intelligent or less intelligent in a specific area, then you have to do this even more times. And so it's not even, do you delegate or not? But it lies on a spectrum, which is like, to what degree do I delegate? To what degree do I run this process with this person? If I, for example, when I hired my first CFO, I brought her in, I was prepared to do this. And she's like, I know how to do all this. What do you mean? I've been doing this for 30 years. And I was like, okay. So now I just said, skip 1 and 2. Okay, show me. And then I watched her. And so I do think that there is a little nuance to it, which is just, again, the more intelligent someone is, the more they can take vague direction and get it right.
Plus, if there's experience there, sales in particular, some people can wing it.
Yeah.
Based on the experience of a document they probably created in the past in their head.
Yes.
What about like delegating in particular? Like, for example, I like certain things. I've applied to all the comments on my own posts. I've tried delegating it. No one is quite my voice. No, I keep doing it, and I kind of like it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, okay, I'm accepting that I like it, and I'm not going to delegate it. But how do you decide what to delegate, what not to delegate? Is there any process you have for that?
Yeah, oftentimes I think there is, if we made like a little quadrant, right?
Okay.
Yeah, there's what you suck at,
Yeah. Okay.
suck, bad at, what you're good at, what you like doing. And I think that most activities fall into some.
Okay, that's so important, guys. Suck, good, bad, like. Suck. Perfect.
End of this quadrant. And so what I try to do is I try to say, cool, so the things I suck at doing or I dislike doing, those are the things I'm going to look at first. Specifically the things I suck at doing, right? And so if I suck at doing something, then I want to try and delegate it as soon as possible to somebody who's good at it. If I'm good at doing something, I'm probably going to hold on to it first. If I like doing something, I'm probably going to hold on to it.
Yeah.
If I dislike doing something, I might say, oh, I think, now I delegated things I suck at. Let's look at the things I don't like doing, because I'll put a caveat to this. Sometimes there's things we don't like doing that we should do, right? That are important and are hard to reverse. If there's something very important and is very hard to reverse and has a very high dollar amount tied to it, even if I don't like doing it, I'm probably gonna do it.
Yeah.
So there's always nuances to this.
Firing people, for example, I can do it, I dislike it, but
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to do it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And so the second I move on to is dislike. And then I would work my way to things that I'm good at doing and like doing. And so it's like you start on this end and say, like, what do I suck at that I also hate? That also, I would say, like, dollar per hour is the lowest. So if I want to delegate when I'm first starting, I would say, if I suck at it, if I don't like it, and if it's cheap to hire for, that's the first thing I want to get off my plate. The second thing I want to get off my plate are things that I'm like mediocre, I could even be good at, but it's still low dollar per hour. So I'm saying, okay, I'm good at doing it. I'm good at doing customer service, but I can pay somebody $15 an hour to do customer service, and it's not the highest ROI of my time. And so I work my way all the way to, I want to do things that I like doing and are high dollar per hour. So it's like this produces, $500,000 an hour for the company when I work on this, or whatever it might be, which is really where you want to get to. Yeah, and so that's the overarching, like, I would say you lay that over everything, which is like, what's the dollar per hour of this task worth? And that's something that people have to ask themselves. Now, I would say responding to comments, though, the question is, because I actually am in the same boat as you, which is I don't have other people respond to my comments. And the reason I think is because it's also, well, what kind of brand am I trying to build?
Right.
I'm not going for quantity of comments responded to. I'm going for when I do respond, they know it's me. And
Yeah.
so they always know that they can trust that Layla is the one who speaks from her profiles.
It's fascinating. That's a brilliant framework. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to use it. Right, management. Last but not least, management.
So I look at management as being the glue that ties the vision of where we're going to the day-to-day activities. Management is bridging the gap. And so I look at it as a manager's job is to constantly ensure that the day-to-day operations are leading us towards the greater vision or goal. Now, how do you do that? It's usually people, process, projects. That's usually what managers are overseeing. Because you can manage people, you can manage processes, and you can manage projects. And I look at that as the job of a manager. And so management is figuring out how to bridge the gap using the least amount of resources possible and the right ones. So you want to use the right resources and the least amount needed to achieve that goal. Now, management as again, like it's a term that has many bundled terms. Like management is communication, management is resource allocation, management is accountability, management is because to do all of these things, you have to have so many other skills that allow you to do it. For example, like when I first started, I knew how to communicate well, I knew how to allocate resources, but I didn't necessarily know how to track and measure things. And so then I was doing all these things, but I couldn't effectively tell you how fast I was going to get us towards that vision. And so I think that there's a lot of different pieces to it. However, I think that the best analogy I can give is that you are that glue that gets us to the vision. So it's like somebody's making sure that the day-to-day operations are leading us towards the greater vision. So if I am managing marketing, for example, and I know that the vision is that we are a marketing department that is able to produce both organic and paid content that leads to, maybe I'm a service business, 5,000 booked calls a month. Okay, are the day-to-day operations leading to that? Well, that means if I want to know that, then maybe that means I need 100 booked calls a day. Maybe it means, okay, how do I produce 100 booked calls? I need 17 ads. Okay, how many ads do I have to create every week? And so that's where you start with all the measurements and basically developing KPIs and performance metrics, because it's really hard to hit a goal that's 12 months out or ever reach a vision if you're not measuring incremental progress towards that vision. And so I do think if you're not measuring incremental progress towards that vision. And so I do think a lot of the management comes really hard to hit a goal that's 12 months out or ever reach a vision if you're not measuring incremental progress towards that vision. And so I do think a lot of the management comes from through the people, process, and projects, being able to measure the effectiveness and progress of each of those things. And so I would say that it's a lot less sexy than leadership, because it's a lot more, the difficulty of management, I would say, and where most people falter is managing process. I think a lot of people are really great at. Managing projects, I think a lot of people are really great at. What's hard is managing people, because how do you get a person to do a process? How do you get a person to complete a project? And so that is where I think like there's management and there's leadership. I don't think that they are exclusive. I think that they have a lot of overlap. I do not think that you can be an effective manager without also being a leader, because people, if they only do things out of threat of losing their job, then they will give you the minimum effort required to maintain the job. But if people do things because you've aligned their personal goals with the business objectives, and they're doing things to achieve their personal goals, and by consequence achieving the business objectives, they give you discretionary effort, and therefore you get more from the people on the team. And so I think a lot of management comes down to, it's a phrase that I use, which is just like the philosophy of positive reinforcement versus punishment, because a lot of managers, if you look at it, they basically continue to raise the bar over and over and over again with, hey, if you don't continue to meet the bar, I will fire you.
Yeah.
And that gets people to perform when the manager is present. But
Wrong KPI as well, right?
Right, exactly. Hit these KPIs and you will maintain your job. Whereas when I walk out of the room, it's kind of like a dog. If I hit the dog every time the dog jumps on the couch, then the dog, when I'm there, won't jump on the couch. But the moment
Probably
I
won't
leave,
come to you anymore either.
Right. But then the moment I leave the house, the dog's going to jump on the couch. Most traditional management is this way. And I'll say this, which is the reason it's this way is because think about this, right? People are like, well, Layla, why would people ever want to manage like that? Well, how hard is it to say, you know what, I would like you to manage with positive reinforcement versus I would like you to yell at people if they don't do their job.
Right.
Again, like intelligence, it's a lot easier to teach people how to yell at people than it is to teach people how to positively reinforce people.
It's more effort to positively reinforce.
Exactly.
I think that the best measure is like, you're not getting where you want to be. How can I help you get there?
Exactly.
Right? And people don't frame it that way. Like, you haven't met your targets. What's wrong with you?
Exactly.
So they misunderstand. They think management is that. It's not. Well, it's kind of your fault if someone hasn't met a target. You hired wrong. Back to the list. All this interlinks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You've hired wrong. You haven't put the systems in place. You haven't got the right culture. If you are literally shouting at someone, I think you're the problem.
Oh, 100%. And it's what I tell people all the time is it's the main takeaway is tell them what to do instead. Somebody does something wrong. They already did something wrong. We're not going to reconfigure the past. Tell them what to do next time. The question is always this. I ask managers specifically. I say, what do you want to have happen? And they're like, well, I want them to do it right the next time. Okay, well, yelling at them doesn't do that.
No, makes them want to quit.
Do you know
most
what
of the
yelling
time.
at them does? And they're like, what? And I'm like, it makes them feel bad. And people who feel bad are less able to change because they're distracted by the feeling bad about the past mistake, so they cannot focus on the new behavior to move forward.
Totally.
But you will find that lots of people do want people to feel bad.
Yeah,
So
well,
they
that
do
makes them feel better somehow that they've done their job.
Yeah.
But when you shout at someone, anyway, I've done it a few times in my career, by the way. I've accidentally shouted. I've been stressed when I was younger in particular. I was, wasn't managing my emotions right. I had other things going on in my life. I was shouting at them, but I was really shouting at my own problems.
Of course.
I think there's a real interesting thing around being careful with back to what you were saying earlier, regulate your own emotion when you shout. And I think when you do it, you don't realize basically people instantly go into fight or flight.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, when you put someone in fight or flight, they're no longer working with their logical brain. They can't learn anymore.
Yeah.
When someone's in fight or flight, they don't learn anymore.
No.
So you put people in a defensive position, their brain changes. If you were scanning it at that moment, they're no longer learning. They're literally, how can I survive and not get killed in this situation? Back to a basic human instinct, right?
Yeah.
So shouting might make you feel good, like you've somehow done your job. But you're putting that human into a fight or flight, and they'll never learn from you, and they'll be scared in the future to repeat that same pathway.
And they won't be loyal.
And they won't be loyal, and they, back to the dog analogy, they won't sit with you at night when you need them to.
No.
Right? Don't know how that relates to this, but
It does.
general idea. They won't be there late at night with you when you need it, helping you when you're having a tough time. So
Because you become the threat.
yeah,
Because you become unpredictable. And so then they constantly feel like there's this looming threat. They never know when it's going to strike. And so because of that, then they grow resentful because they're resenting you for the fact that they're constantly feeling this wavering anxiety when they're around you. And then they start to do things to almost sabotage even. But you've actually made them that way. So it's just a very interesting concept. I like that you see things the same way because I think beyond a lot of people's comprehension. I'll say this, which is if you use positive reinforcement in the workplace, there's not concrete evidence on this, but if you look at the studies, people are likely to stay about 3 to 5 times as long in a workplace that uses positive reinforcement than punishment.
I've seen in companies, 'cause I've done a lot of consultancy in the past for big brands that are losing staff. And when I used to dig into why, because it's internal marketing, right? Part of it is internal marketing. When you dig into it, it's like you'll find that in a company that's doing quite well with a bad manager, you'll find that the no title person is keeping the team together. The person that's there at night with them working hard, they've got no title, but the companies that somehow survive when they have a bad culture like that, because there's quite a few of them in big corporate world, the manager is the problem, the staff are working together, like I'm not going to let my colleague down.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw a clip recently of some guy who was offered a lot of money to quit his job at McDonald's. He said, I don't want all that money. I can't leave my colleagues. There's only 2 of us here today. You know, like that is a golden human being. You know, like, and that sort of person is actually naturally a manager.
Yeah.
Because they're not willing to leave their team. It's like the kind of battle scene thing. You don't go on a battlefield and leave your troops and shout at them from a distance. Go and kill those people over there, right? No.
Yeah.
So all of this ties together. Everything you've described today, all of these points. I hope people have listened carefully because they all actually interlink, don't they? And it's fascinating. Thank you.
Well, it's funny because what you just said makes me think of this line, which is, if you want to know who the leader is, don't look at their titles, look at who people listen to.
Yes, totally. Yeah, totally.
Hey, I'm Kim. Want to open a craft brewery? Check out my video. We're a massive factory.
Who the leader is, don't look at their titles, look at who people listen to.
Yes, totally.
Wow,
Yeah, totally.
important lesson. Okay, that video was helpful, and that's all I prepared for today.
Hi, I'm
Thank you so much, guys, for your time. I really appreciate you being here with me, and I feel really tired and I need to sleep right now. So thank you so much for your time. I hope to have 100, 200 subscribers for tomorrow. I hope to have 200 subscribers for tomorrow. Please, 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 please. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe, like and subscribe, and you are helping me make $1 million in 1 year. And also, if you subscribe, you are helping me go to the moon. So please subscribe to help me go to the moon. And remember, one life, one shot.
Welcome, my name's Alex. .com. If you're new to the channel, we help